at, or used to work at Unity.
Oh,
Right.
Vaguely.
Yes.
and I picturing like in an attic
Right,
studio.
exactly. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's very, yes, because I watched their service.
So you're graduating this next year too?
Yes.
So is Emily. Have you had Emily McCowan in any of your classes?
Is Emily getting an MDiv?
You can't get there by road.
I don't know.
So you can get to, and
She's going to be a chaplain?
Go across the bridge and to the road.
Okay.
But I don't know what the degree and stuff is.
Called.
Yeah, I think it is, but I
Yeah,
don't
if she's
know.
in the ordination track for years, probably knows it.
Yeah. What year, how many years has she done?
This is her third year?
That's
Well,
strange.
next spring.
I haven't run into her.
But she's only done online classes,
Yeah.
so.
My first year was on roll, so, yeah.
Interesting. She's very musical, so she does like, a lot of her assignments, if she can, she'll write a hymn.
That reminds me of listening to the radio with my mom.
They're here.
Hi, Don. How are you?
I don't think I'm gonna use it. Oh, look at you guys! This was a big surprise.
When he walked in the first day, I just went, I had a sense of, and I really didn't have a clue, but I had the sense.
I might have to skip it today.
We saved it for you.
There we go.
Front row, huh? Alright.
Okay.
Tony chose that
Yeah.
front row, the first time he came here.
John sits in the back.
It was the only spot open when I came the first time, so.
So now this is your spot.
There are no assigned seats. You know that, right?
Well, this is
I don't know.
There is
It feels
implied,
like it
there is
is.
implied, some people it's like,
It's like Emmanuel, there's implied hierarchy.
That's just human nature of possession.
yeah.
My students do that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They could
No.
sit
First
anyway.
day, they sit down and then they sit there, and then somebody else comes a couple weeks later and doesn't know and sits, and it's just this shocking look on their face when they come in, and it actually helps me. I tease them, but it helps me to know the names if they sit in the same places each time. So if they do move on their own, then I kind of give them a hard time. Sometimes like, you're just trying to confuse me, aren't you?
Well, you know, 'cause at work, you know, we have hotel seating, so you just first come, first serve for others, but you know where everyone's going to be sitting
Right.
every day. Yeah.
Exactly.
We had a member years ago that would always sit in the very back row, but he was a leader of the church and always very engaged in the conversations and the feedback and stuff like that. And I, one time, threatened to take the podium after the start of the service and move it to the, everybody turn your chairs around. He would be right in front.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
And your husband?
Keith.
Keith.
Hi.
got here. I said good morning to you.
Also,
Our other Tony. All right. Morning.
Now we just gotta get some cousins in.
Yeah.
Wiser brother.
Oh,
Tell your friends, tell your friends, tell your neighbors.
Is that smart, brother?
So Dawn, I've got the scoop for the school board.
That's
if you
why I
need any.
changed it.
I think we do, yes.
You do? There's only one person we have to worry about.
Kind of what I heard, I'd like to get out of
Did you get the mail?
Yeah, what time do you go back?
Yeah, so we might go. I can spend the whole thing.
Okay.
We're election judge.
Election judge, sometimes you like to apply it again. I'm like, really? Don't you have it on file?
I'm wonderful. yourself?
Pretty good.
Just pretty good?
Pretty good.
Not amazing, not super spectacular.
Insights.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they
Right. We got an adjective in there.
I have to tell you, when Dawn came up to make heaven this summer, and she opened up her food, and there was a little note from you, I just thought that was the sweetest thing ever. I'm like, oh, he's a keeper, for goodness sake.
You know,
You want to
you
do
could
this
take
to
use any of the, you know, the dog whistles and stuff like that.
Hopefully, Chuck will hum, so that we have a good pitch. 'Cause
She'll play it,
Oh, that's
she'll
right.
play us in.
Never.
No, the one guy
Let me know when you're ready.
in our school district, he starts talking about religion.
Were you talking about the come?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know what,
1 minute.
29.
2 years ago, we had some, it was more critical in
Usually
our
we're like
school
just
district.
screaming into the
And I
deadline.
just,
Right.
I never went out and
Sunday
talked to people.
overtime.
Oh, it's overtime.
And it was many
I was kind of wondering, I'm like,
I went
told him
Having
to come.
only one room,
You know, I
probably,
mean, we have like
Okay.
35,000 people in the Grove, and
you know.
things get voted on by 500 people.
Yep.
It's funny how I used to use the singing bowl to gather everybody from the
Got a whole.
kitchen side, you know,
Right, right.
and then people would start ignoring it after a few months, so I started doing the come wherever you are, and I started singing.
Yes.
There's that reading is one for meditation, but this is the one I'm actually.
There are enough people with sense.
Good morning. Okay, are we ready? All right.
Welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
So glad you're here. Just a couple of announcements to make this morning before we get started with our formal time together. What I would like to do is first say that we do not take a formal offering, but we do pass around a plate for the collection.
They're both back there.
Oh, so we're still changing it, sorry. So we have plates in the back where you can actually place a donation. You can donate online. I'll get it right one day. And then we collect change for charity. So any change that you might have in your pockets, we collect for charity in the back. All right, so eventually that'll work out, and I'll get that in the script right. I don't really have any other formal announcements for everyone, but does anyone have an announcement for us?
Yes, we had a formal, an informal sort of social gathering of the Ukrainian sponsors and the sponsorees last night at First Unitarian Society. And they just wanted to send their gratitude to this church for the donations that you provided for these families to be able to come to the United States. So I passed that along.
Oh, and the council has an agreement with Kathleen to play pretty much every week.
Yeah, live music every week.
Yay!
Having said that, she will not be here next week.
That's why I said pretty much.
Well, from going forward from then on.
Awesome. We're so glad you're here for that.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here too.
The only other, I just remembered, we're trying to gather some people together to continue to talk about religious education, which was what the presentation was about last weekend. If you are interested in helping us vision a way of doing religious education moving forward, whether it happens to do with children or adults or both or small, anything. Just come and, you know, say, hey, I'm interested, and then I'll put you on an email chain and we can figure out where we're going to go next with that. Something that's very near and dear to my heart. Anything else? Okay, well now I invite you to calm your soul and try to rid your mind of all the chaos of life as much as possible, and breathe in the spirit of wholeness together, that spirit that abides here as we prepare our hearts for a spiritual time together as we meditate on this musical prelude. I invite you to remain seated and join us in our opening words, which will be on the screen, but also it's number 588 in the hymnal. It is called "To Loose the Fetters of Injustice," adapted from Isaiah 58. Will we read this responsively? Is not this fast that I choose?
To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke.
Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see them naked to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin?
Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly.
If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted,
you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail.
It is during this time of during our worship service that we stop for just a moment. We gather together as a community of seekers to honor the interdependence of life, to respect the dignity of all, and to honor the land we walk humbly upon. Friends, let us acknowledge that we now stand and sit upon the traditional territories of the indigenous people, the Dakota, for whom this county and this congregation are named, and others, the members of the original nations of this land who continue to cry out for justice, preservation, and self-determination. We are blessed with this beautiful space. We are also blessed with this community and opportunities to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. And now we will light the chalice.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
And now I invite you to stand and sing under the direction of Kathleen, who's going to give us some instructions.
Yes.
Number 170.
170.
It's not for this
What
one,
I'm
it's
going to be
for this.
playing is more of an accompaniment, so I'm really not
You're gonna
playing
need
the
this
melody
later.
throughout, so I'll just play it through with the melody, okay?
During our service at this point, what we do is we invite you to come up and, if you so desire, share a joy or concern, or often both. And feel free to take one of the candles, light it from the flame, and place it into the bowl. And for those people who are not going to come up, we do light a candle for the unspoken joys and concerns at the end.
I have a joy and a concern. So the joy first is for Mr. Brian. Thank you for being here. You are a gift to us. I am so grateful that you're part of this group and to have met you. Just wow. Amazing. And the other one is a joy and concern because a few weeks ago, Holly Jorgensen, who's up there, mentioned that her neighbor was possibly going into assisted living and that his house was probably going to be listed, but it wasn't yet, and they were concerned about people in the area that would be stewards of the environment because it's a lake area that's left pretty natural. So I went to meet the man and made an offer and they accepted. So the joy is, whoa. I didn't know I had this dream buried in the back of myself somewhere. It's very much like a home that I had when I was younger, when I was 12. And my family split up. My dad was drinking, lost a job, and it was really traumatic to leave that lake. And I didn't know I had this secret dream to ever do that, or ever thought that I could do that on my own. I'm just shaking. So it's just a weird crack in the universe that I fell into that this worked out. And he is just a lovely, sweet man, the man that owns the house and is moving out of it. He built it in 1971, and he has so much of his life rooted into this land and this place, and going through every wrench and every tool and every spray can of stuff that he had in his garage, because he built race cars. I just, it's being there for the parties. They let me come and transplant blueberries yesterday, so my hands are like this. But yeah, it's been a real cathartic experience. The concern is, oh my God, it's kind of a mess. He's not been able to keep it up, and there's buckthorn, and I have a lot of work to do. And I'm looking forward to it, but it also makes me a little nervous. So, yeah, joy and concern, and whoa, Nellie. So, thank you for listening to me ramble.
Linda, when are you closing?
I don't know yet. I have to sell the house I'm in, so that's the other part. Figure out how to get this ready to do that, put the deed in, finish this stuff, fix. I got projects. So I will be calling. Schlep something. I don't know yet. I'm concerned. Ooh. Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of joys. Of course, I'm very joyful for being here and being able to play now every Sunday. Yay, I'm so happy and thank you. And the other joy is everybody knows that now I'm a certified sound healer, and I found a place that is in existence of a collective of healing practitioners, and I've joined up with them. So,
Nice.
Where is that at?
Actually, it's called Karmic Channels. And it's up in Fridley. So I got a little driving to do, but I'll only be up there like 1 or 2 days a week. To start anyway.
Just wait until you get here. I'm
That's
coming
not
with
gonna
you.
make me stay alone. I see.
Anyway. I'll make you say it anyway.
You will. Okay.
Go for
Well, we are celebrating a couple days ago our 34th or 39th wedding anniversary. I just want to take 5 years off and
You're going for 40 already.
Yeah.
So.
39 years?
39 years.
Kids had a nice party for us last night, and we invited more people than we thought were going to come, and it was very nice.
Nobody ever does that.
What?
So this is a joy because I just returned from the Dakota Unitarian Universalist Women's Spirituality Conference. That happened in Racine, Wisconsin, and that was great. And I hope some more people from this congregation come next year.
Can you clarify the name of it?
It's the Dakota UU Women's Spirituality Conference. Yeah.
Oh.
So these
They
people
stole
are
our-
mostly
share
based
the
in
name.
Illinois. Yeah.
They
yeah.
stole our name. Yeah.
No, yeah. So it must be another offshoot or something, but yeah, next year I'll let everybody know about it well in advance.
So I'm going to light two. One is going to be for the unspoken ones. We'll get to that in a second. I'm going to try to do this without being emotional, but in light of what Linda said, I just wanted to give thanks to this congregation for accepting me for who I am, despite all of my rough edges and weirdness.
Weird.
Yeah, I don't have many edges, I have more. Well, anyways, it's such a blessing, and I wanted to let you know that I appreciate you, and I handed in my application for membership to Kathy today. So.
I told him about the purple folder curse.
And this is the time when we light a candle for all of those who I have not shared, but the universe knows. And we hold you together in our hearts. Pardon me. And now it's my delight and pleasure to introduce Sana DelCorazón. Did I say it right, hopefully?
Very good.
Yeah, okay. Who is a student at United Theological Seminary and an amazing human being, who is going to share a reading with you and a presentation. Welcome.
We're not going to use that reading, so you don't need to put that up there because, of course, I changed it.
The spirit moves when the spirit
Oh,
moves.
yes. So first, let us ground ourselves. So I invite you to plant your feet and to relax in your chair, to close your eyes if you feel comfortable, and just relax your hands on your lap if that's available to you. And I want you to slow down your breathing if you can. And take 3 deep, long breaths, expanding your abdomen with every inhale. Do one more breath and hold it at the top for 4 seconds. And then exhale. And then just notice how your body feels. And when you're ready, you can come back into the room. I'm going to begin with a prayer, short prayer. Spirit of love and life, open our hearts to the words this morning. Amen. So it's actually been like, I just realized this, it's been 6 years the last time I preached at a UU church. You'll learn a little bit about me in the sermon. But yes, so 6 years ago, the first time I preached was in a UU church when I was a member of a church in New Jersey. There's 2 readings for today. One is by Bell Hooks, in All About Love is the name of the book. A commitment to a spiritual life requires us to do more than read a book, a good book, which good Unitarians like reading books, and go on a restful retreat. It requires conscious practice and a willingness to unite the way we think with the way we act. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move against domination and against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom, to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. To live our lives based on the principles of love ethic by showing care, respect, knowledge, integrity, and the will to cooperate, we have to be courageous. Learning how to face our fears is one way we embrace love. The second reading is in 1 John 4:18 in the New Testament. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear expects punishment. The person who is afraid has not been made perfect in love. Get comfortable. This is a long one, so. This is a long one. I gotta put a lot into here. So, in 2013, my wife, who's sitting back there, and I decided to move to Iowa, Gina's home state, to start a family. We were living in the sunny state of California when we first got married, and we quickly realized that even with 4 jobs between the 2 of us, we couldn't afford to get pregnant unless we lowered our cost of living. After some deliberation, it wasn't that long, Iowa won, to my surprise. Though it seems hard to believe now, the state was one of the first to legalize same-sex marriage in 2009. And to my surprise, I became a Midwestern wife and later mom, married to a white person living in a small college town. My world suddenly became very white. And I quickly learned that while it was okay for me to talk about my wife, calling anybody white or talking about whiteness was a social taboo that downright upset people. I remember getting into a Facebook fight with a good, dear Midwestern friend because I mentioned that fact. That was just not Iowa nice. White people did not like to be grouped together. She said, "We are not a monolith. We do not want to be racialized." That's what we call white privilege, not having to name their whiteness and being able to be an individual. And little did they know, this Philadelphia born and raised girl was never going to be Iowa nice. I ruffled a lot of white feathers that year and felt like a fish out of water until November 2016, when even white Midwestern liberals joined the race conversation. You all finally admitted that electing President Obama did not mean we lived in a post-racial society. And 7 years later, we are now also comfortable talking about race, right? How does it feel in your body hearing me talk about white people and later white supremacy on a Sunday morning? As much as I don't want to be the brown woman guest talking about race again, as the mother of a brown son, I am deeply invested in whether white people can build greater tolerance for discomfort about race, talking about race, in order to see societal change. See, we have changed laws without changing hearts and minds, without changing relationships. And that is why we are still struggling with race relations. White supremacy culture, while most damaging to Black and brown bodies, is not ours to change. Rather, white supremacy can only be dismantled by white people themselves. I believe that people in communities of faith who are committed to social justice have the capacity and motivation to do the work of racial justice. And all change and transformation starts with building a tolerance for discomfort. By the way, my sermon is called Discomfort, the Work of Transformative Justice. Let me be frank. What are we doing here at church? Why do you come to church? Why do we become part of a religious group or organization? Yes, we want a place of belonging. That was the initial motivation for joining a UU congregation many moons ago. I joined a UU congregation over, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago. It was a place where me and my little queer family was accepted and seen. That is not a small thing, but it's just the beginning. In a society that idealizes individualism and independence, many of us are searching for belonging and connection. Religious communities like this offer that interdependence, a place of belonging where our presence matters to others and their presence matters to us. Interdependence not only means you acknowledge that your liberation and mine are tied together, but it also means that there is a broad friendship, mutuality of purpose, and abiding care for one another. It means we have a shared mission and vision of the world. It means we are touched by the possibility that we have something to learn from each other. It means that we belong to one another, that our hopes and struggles are not held alone. It also means we are open to be changed by one another. That is why church isn't just a social club. It isn't only a place for radical belonging. In its best form, it's a place where you are both seen, held, and challenged to grow. As people of faith and community with one another, part of the spiritual work we do is allow relationships to change us, to mold us, to help us become more loving, more caring, more compassionate people. Like Bell Hooks stated, a commitment to a spiritual life required us to do more than read good books or go on a restful retreat. It requires conscious practice, a willingness to unite what we think with the way we act. She is talking about change and transformation. And we are lucky enough to be in this, to do this transformational work in community. If you know anything about the change process, you know it requires disorientation and discomfort. Discomfort is a necessary part of growth and change. Think about when you were a kid learning to walk, or you learned to do something like ride a bike or read or play an instrument, or when you realized a belief you held was not true for you anymore. I bet it felt uncomfortable. Discomfort arises because we become aware of our need to mature, to evolve, to change. And our ego doesn't like change. But change is natural and neutral. For us to grow as we did as children, we must be transformed. Now, as adults and people of privilege, we must make conscious choices to move out of our comfort zones. We need to be able to sit with this disorienting feelings and experiences of discomfort in order to learn and grow together. As Bell Hooks says, to unite the way we think with the way we act. The big work of transformative justice is about becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially within cultures and institutions that reward niceness and getting along. These are key qualities of white supremacy culture. White supremacy culture fears open conflict. Ask my wife. When someone raises an issue like racism or white supremacy that causes discomfort, the response is to blame the person for raising the issue rather than to look at the issue that is actually causing the problem. This is the story of my life. Raising or bringing awareness to a difficult issue is seen as impolite, rude, out of line. As a brown woman who likes to challenge the status quo, it means I'm seen as a threat. As a person who has been living in predominantly white spaces for over a decade, thank you, Gina, I have learned to sit in my discomfort long enough to gain insights about who I am and what's going on around me to inform my mindful actions towards others. I have learned that we need to stay long enough in our discomfort to gain greater, deeper insight about what's coming up for us and what's really going on without getting stuck in those feelings. This is part of our healing and our transformation process. There are 2 women of color who are doing that work right now, trying to build white women's tolerance for discomfort of acknowledging the impact of whiteness and white supremacy, and the ways white women in particular benefit from it. Journalist Dana Brownlee says, there's a grand paradox about racism. Virtually everyone agrees that racism still rages on, yet virtually no one admits their own racism. Indeed, it seems that our workplaces and broader society are both caught in the grips of everyone else out there. Everyone else is the problem mentality. Race to Dinner founders Regina Jackson and Sari Rowe, a Black woman and an Indian American woman, literally asked the white women in their dinner conversations to admit they are racist. The documentary Deconstructing Karen explores the race to dinner concept, during which Jackson and Rowe facilitate radically honest conversations about race with 8 white women at a host home. Journalist Brownlee writes, Rowe and Jackson are insistent on cutting through the noise and theatrics that too often take center stage because they see these dinners as a unique way to begin to confront racism head on. Rowe insists the only thing that's going to change this is if we change the cultural DNA And the only way you can change the cultural DNA is through personal human interactions. And we know that breaking bread with people is the best way to do that. The documentary filmed one of the dinners with a group of 8 women, 2 of whom were Trump supporters and the rest self-proclaimed progressives. Given the low ratings on Apple TV, I believe these race to dinner conversations are easily misunderstood and misrepresented because they are radical in their unwillingness to go along with the cultural norms that prioritize comfort over progress. Brownlee urges viewers to not be so quick to paint this approach as misguided or aggressive because it's really not radical or new. Perhaps the most famous advocate of such a radical approach was Dr. Martin Luther King himself, who in his famous letter from Birmingham jail railed against the white moderate, insisting, quote, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizen consular or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action." End quote. The founders of Race to Dinner recognized that conversations over a meal can be an important and necessary step in the work of racial justice. But these conversations must be more than patting oneself on the back for simply showing up. We must move forward towards higher value conversations that decenter individual white feelings and challenge and fortify racial stamina. If we expect radically different results, we need to be ready to have radically different conversations. For white people, avoiding discomfort is part of how systems of oppression are upheld. Avoidance of discomfort is a central element of white supremacy culture. And today I'm telling you that I wholeheartedly believe, as people of faith, we must lean into our holy discomfort if we want our communities, our world to change and be transformed into beloved and just communities. Building a tolerance for discomfort, stepping through the resistance that may surface can lead to remarkable rewards, like being married to me. my spouse wrote that part. My spouse, Gina, who was raised UU in Iowa, tells a story of discomfort they experienced very early on in our relationship that had everything to do with our cultural and racial differences. So I'm quoting Gina directly. This is what Gina said, quote, "Sometimes very soon after we started dating, maybe within the first month or so, I remember you asked me during one of our phone calls to tell you something I don't like about you. This was over 13 years ago now, but I remember it vividly. I was left speechless by your question. The way I was raised in a family that embodied the pleasant topics onlyness of middle-class white Midwesterners, I would never even ask that question, let alone answer it. I mean, it took me about 40 years to tell my mother I don't really like her pot roast." Took me one, not me. When you asked me this all those years ago, saying something like, "We have to be able to tell the whole truth to each other to be in a real relationship," I felt everything inside me resist, even recoil. We were in the honeymoon period. We were putting forth the best versions of ourselves still. Wouldn't everything be ruined if we acknowledged that there were things we didn't like about each other? The fact that we were in the new, everything is possible stage of relationship almost made me bold, though. I was compelled enough by our connection to try to stick with the conversation anyway. I took a deep breath, and while I remember what I said, I don't remember what I said. You're obviously perfect, so the answer could have, what answer could I have given? I do remember that saying it felt distinctly like walking off a cliff. It made such an impression on me that I still picture where I was walking, Grand Avenue in Oakland, California, not too far from Lake Merritt. You, a Puerto Rican from Philadelphia, a city perhaps best known for being rude, challenged my Iowa nice white norms by asking me with great calmness what I didn't like about you. In that moment, I chose to push through the cultural training, alarm bells screaming inside my head, causing my whole body to tense, unlocking a level of honesty with myself, with you, and with others that has truly transformed how I exist in the world. I'm not nearly as afraid of conflict as I was before, believing it now to hold moments of truth in a relationship, opportunities to reach a new level of understanding with another person. While I could have saved myself the moment of discomfort by shutting down the conversation or refusing to answer, I would have missed a lifetime of love and of growth that has led me to deeper, more authentic relationships. Thank you, Gina, for letting me share that. This isn't the first time I know of that this congregation has talked about discomfort. My friend Ray Ann Holmeyer preached here in May of 2021 about embracing our porousness. They said in order to become oriented, we must be disoriented. Disorientation involves some sort of discomfort. The holy is utterly disorienting and beyond comprehension. Rather than protecting ourselves from this disorientation, Ray urged us, you, to welcome it in, to allow yourself to be transformed by this disorientation. Ray asked, how do you build the capacity to grow ourselves to what we yearn for and what we can envision this world to be? Because what we know from cells, they cannot protect and grow at the same time, and neither can we. Protection is meant to be temporary when we're in danger. Protection can absolutely mean survival, but to chronically protect yourself can cut off growth, can cut off oxygen, can cut off life. So I ask again, how do we indeed grow our capacity to face disorientation and discomfort, to move towards what we yearn for and what we can envision this world to be? We must risk disorientation and discomfort. What are the small and simple practices that allow you to live in the complexity, challenge, and beauty of life together with others? Practices that help us heal and dismantle the systems of oppression that keep all of humanity and all living things from thriving. Would it be helpful to take a deep breath the next time you hear someone say something that challenges a deep held belief of yours? Feeling uncomfortable does not mean you are unsafe. So I ask once more, how can we collectively help each other build our tolerance for discomfort so that we can transform ourselves, our communities, and the world into the beloved community? May we step lovingly into holy discomfort with grace and gratitude for the opportunity to change and be transformed in community. May we envision and live into this transformative practices and ways of being together. May it be so. Amen.
this point in our service, we engage each other in a time of reflection, and we have about 10 minutes, and then we can continue that after service over treats, my favorite part.
Do we, can we get the name of that documentary again, so we can?
Oh, Deconstructing Karen. It's on Apple TV. Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a book. I have a book with me. They wrote a book, so I can show you. They actually, that book was, yeah. I'll bring the book, and it's they actually were giving it away for free last year.
Oh, you have it with you?
Show and tell. I think it's hilarious. It might be upsetting for white people. Some white people. Some white people. Some white people.
So I have a thought, if I'm to be bold and try to enter a discomfort zone, I think the thing that holds me back is my fear of hurting someone's feelings. 40 years of not talking about the pot roast. I totally understand that. I mean, and what's the point, right? And so, how does a person know what, you know, whether that boldness is going to
Blow up in your face.
Yeah.
or just how is it going to help, or is it going to just blow up in your face?
Well, I want to talk about the pot roast first. It's $100 pot roast.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. It means it could taste better, but so that's a real, anyway. Brigitte, you want to answer that? Yeah.
Well, one thing I've tried to do is practice with other white people first, because I think as I have, and the first time I ever did racial justice, like deep conversation, was in a Unitarian church in, it was in Des Moines. And we read a book called Waking Up White, and we intentionally had a group that was for white people, because there's a lot of stumbling when you first start having hard conversations. And, you know, I think what's interesting is in this documentary and in these dinner series, these women they understand what's going to happen in these conversations. They know that things will be said that could be hurtful. So I think that it's in situations where people of color, either with practice with other white people first, or ensure that the people of color with whom you're in conversation have done so willingly, right? And want to have that conversation and are in a place for themselves to take care of themselves in that moment. Because I remember when we attended a Unitarian church in New Jersey, when Trump was elected, that church had just started doing, was it Beloved Conversations? Which is a curriculum around race and racial justice that is largely designed for Unitarian congregations that are largely white. And it was very painful for Sana to be the only person, one of maybe 3 people of color in that whole congregation, because it was new and people were stumbling and they were saying things. But when we made spaces where we could protect people of color from having to feel like, oh, I have to answer everything this person says, or you know, I have to hold all of this white person's grief. There is grief. There is a need for white people to heal. And I think that we need to do that together in spaces that are designed to be practice spaces, so we don't bring that harm. Sorry, that's a really long answer.
That's a really good answer, though.
A lot to absorb, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I want to say, hurt feelings don't kill people.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yep.
people acting nice actually kills people.
Right.
So there's a chapter on that talks about your niceness is killing us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather someone tell me the truth than lie to me, right? Because it's not helpful, it doesn't deepen our relationship. And it's about practicing how to tell the truth, which I'm still learning too, right? Like, my spouse and I are very, like, I'm East Coast, very cutthroat. I'm still learning the positive sandwich. Say something nice, say what you really want to say something nice. I'm still learning, you know? Because I and my family, we just said what we needed to say, you know? But yeah, I think there is, this is recorded, we can never tell my mother-in-law. Like, my mother-in-law thinks it's like, she thinks it's like, it gives me a license to be mean. I said, I'm not being mean because I'm being honest. I'm not being mean. I love you and I care about you, and I want you to know how this is hurtful, what this behavior, what you said is hurtful to me. You know?
There's another phrase that comes to mind that is related, and Minnesota is known for this, is passive aggression. Passive aggression. And
Passive aggressions.
yeah, it's like
Yep.
the pot roast, if you're there when she's making it, and she goes, I'm gonna add this for flavor, and you go, well, that's a choice.
But that's different.
You know?
Or you take the pot roast out of the freezer, you saute, you season it, you put it in the fridge. That's passive aggressive. I would never do that.
You'd probably do so much better if you did it, babe. It's not the same, but it is also, I think, how can we, because when I said to my mom, I don't really like pot roast, it really shook her world.
Yeah.
And so if that's world shaking, how am I going to say, Mom, you are imposing your racialized notions on our child who is brown? Like, that's, we have to start small, being honest, because there's so much big stuff that we have to be honest about too.
Right.
Well, and I was just thinking, if you had only let a year go by before you told your mom about the pot roast, it might not have hurt quite so much on her part.
They?
It's true, and
You haven't met my mother.
it's true, and there's also like there was a clear expectation of script. This is what you say.
Right.
Like, this is how you say. This is how I've had her say to me, and this is what you say. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't get the script this morning. Like I hear you, and there is an awareness. We've been together 13 years of how the expectation is lie to me.
I'd like to share with you, I have a brother that I love dearly. He's a good person and everything, but he is like Republican and he has these views, but he contends, and we have butt heads with issues and different things, but he says there is no racism. He says you make everything into racism. Everything you do, in other words, the Democrats. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's just an excuse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I want to say that the documentary, the two people that made the most significant stride were the Republican women.
Yeah, sure.
They were the ones willing to admit things that the other women who are progressive, and one was like, it's just all about love. Like, we're just not willing to see, to hear the truth of the two women of color at the dinner.
But what I told my brother too, I gave him an example of the Greenwood situation in Oklahoma, where, white people came in and burned down the whole Greenwood community.
Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street, I mean, they were doctors, lawyers, teachers, they had businesses and everything, and they were self-sufficient, burned them down. That was what, 1920 something, I can't remember what year.
And what did he say?
And he goes, I really got his attention with that though. I said, can you imagine having your business and then somebody coming in and burning it down because you're different in whatever way? So.
It was really helpful for me when you reminded us about children, and when they're learning something, they just keep at it, and they don't worry about feeling stupid. They just don't know how to do it, so they're gonna learn it. And as a teacher, I've been constantly trying to remind my students that when it does get uncomfortable, that means that you are about to get into that next level of learning. So you've got to hang in there. But of course, then when you put it on me or put it on this racism that we are breathing and growing in, it's a good reminder.
I wanted to mention that I've had an experience all my life when, there's probably a name for this, but when something happens that has an emotional impact, my thinking brain shuts down. It's gone.
Of course.
It's gone. And I think a day later, an hour later, a week later, I know what to say. It's so clear now. Why can't I say that in the moment? And I think that happens too when you have those moments of when you get brave enough to be honest and say something. You can spit the words out that actually say what you want to say and not tiptoe around it, whitewash it so much that it doesn't quite mean what you wanted it to mean. You're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. You get into that part where you get a little emotionally ramped up, and then it's very hard to think straight. It's hard to be able to separate from the emotion of what's happening and however that's affecting somebody. And then I think of the line that I've heard, I'm not responsible for what other people think of me. That's none of my business. But where in that is it my business to be compassionate and considerate when I feel like if I'm being totally honest, then that's too abrupt or it's too harsh or too sharp, and maybe I'm not responsible for how somebody feels if I say something about the pot roast or whatever. In case in my life it was tongue.
Oh,
Yeah, and meatloaf, the meatloaf was bad. So you just eat that feeling on behalf of letting this person continue to feel good about things. But in the big picture, you're not being authentic and honest, and you don't feel like you can be, and you know when you walk into that, you're gonna have an issue, you're gonna have a situation. And that's just hard. I think part of being able to be honest, our whole culture has to get to the point where they can hear honesty without feeling beat up.
I agree.
And without feeling assaulted.
Right.
This is just information. This is not who you are. You are not a bad person because I don't like your pot roast. You know, there are a lot of other good things, yada, yada, yada. But when you can't address something like a pot roast and all that's behind and loaded, then, like it's already come up, how do you deal with the big things? The really, really bad things, not bad things, but the things that have more weight. You never know how much weight there's involved to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In my life, when I've wanted to confront or talk to somebody about a racial situation, I can't remember you talking about it. Well, it brings back a lot of feelings, because this was a parent in school about her child or her children in my class. And I knew I was walking around this issue of, is it a racist issue? It was for her, it wasn't for me. And that's where I was blind to her situation and her perspective. But I felt like I had one foot in two camps. And I didn't know how to be authentic with this woman, who I could understand her point of view. But then I still had to fit all this into the parameters for the school district's behavior policy. I just couldn't navigate that on the fly in the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm still thinking about it, and this is 15 years later. I wonder how he's doing, I wonder how they're doing, and how can I be better and learn from that situation and not get all locked up again.
I have a situation going on right now with, this is recorded, with my pastor, and it is racial in nature. And I have to remind myself, I want to be in relationship with this person. I love this person. I am committed to just, we are, like our freedom is intertwined. So when I come and I approach people, it comes from this loving space of, like, I share with you what I feel or what I think or what I observe because I love you and I want to be in relationship with you. And that helps me to be able to. As a person of color, I deal with this shit all the time. So things happen, and I have a very solid meditation practice. I have a very, I'm very grounded. I do not get easily triggered when things happen, but it has taken a lot of practice of what me and my wife call white nonsense. And I say I love people, so I do it. So I share. So I'm uncomfortable, and I know they will be uncomfortable, but they know I love them.
Well, I know that we couldn't continue this conversation for a really long time, but as I had said before, we can continue this over treats after worship. I appreciate the rich and deep conversation. I forgot to give that to you. So if you would all please stand and join me as you're able in the, whatever color book that is. Teal book, number 1028.
Lovingly into holy discomfort with grace and gratitude for the opportunity to change and be transformed in community. May it be so.
May it be so.
Thank you.
Squish it together. Mom had this sheet of paper. Unfortunately, she gave me a copy of my office. And she said to me, I would appreciate this if you would read this for my sake and not your own. I was hoping you had a copy. I'm gonna have to fess up to it. I'm gonna have to fess up to it. No, she gave it to me after. I'll just have to fess up, I guess.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Nice. I'm going to be gone the weekend before Samhain, but